A network of tunnels and secrets are being discovered beneath Melbourne in what's been described as a subterranean city.
The most elaborate tunnel network in the world, they say.
Did you know there is actually a whole city, a whole network underground beneath our very feet? We weren't actually allowed to show the secret entrance in the station because it's so top secret.
And bones in this cave. This is Melhauer Cave, and it is the creepiest cave I've ever seen. It was owned by the Freemasons. As you can see their logo on top of the cave, it was supposedly used for annual meetings and get-togethers for members from all around the world. It was being used since 1938. Before the Freemasons took control of the cave, the local Native Americans would say that specific cave was a passageway to the underworld. Coincidence? I think not. And supposedly is where they held demonic rituals. Knowledge of the cave started spreading in 2019. That's when they decided to put the gate up, saying that they were afraid for people's safety because they did have an underwater canal under the cave and didn't want anybody to get hurt. Or maybe they just didn't want y'all to find anything. Because a blogger on YouTube who was exploring the cave found a pile of bones and children's shoes.
Pair one. I think these are old shoes. I'm not gonna touch them. They're cool. See the bones.
Now, an excuse from one of the members that was given was, it was most likely either animals that brought the shoes and bones in, like small critters, or the underground canal flooded and brought them in. They also blamed the vandals who would break into the cave for the shoes and bones being there. But people believe something more sinister is going on. I mean, why wouldn't they? Over 500,000 kids go missing every year in the United States.
Suspects in California are accused of running a fake police department and put under arrest. One of the suspects even works for California Attorney General Kamala Harris. I'm 48 Hours Crime-Siders Michelle Sagona. The ruse began in January when the San Diego Sheriff's Office says various police chiefs in Southern California began to receive letters from the Masonic Fraternal Police Department. The letter said specifically that David Henry was now the chief and he was requesting a meeting with each agency. According to a press release, Captain Roosevelt Johnson of the Santa Clarita Valley Sheriff's Office actually accepted a meeting with Henry, Tonette Hayes, and Brandon Keel. They showed up dressed in uniforms and said they were setting up shop in the area. All three were arrested and now charged with impersonating a peace officer. The group claims to have jurisdiction in 33 states and in Mexico. They allegedly believe they're descendants of the Knights Templar and that their group was founded 3,000 years ago. But medieval scholars say their claims are incorrect and that the Knights Templar was founded during the 12th century Crusades in Jerusalem. Their mission was to protect pilgrims visiting the Holy City, and they answered to the Pope. Some historians speculate that they were tasked with finding precious religious relics during the wars. The legend of the Knights has been featured in popular Hollywood films like The Da Vinci Code.
The Knights Templar.
But the Templars were created to protect the Holy Land.
That was a cover.
And National Treasure. As for the suspects, police say after serving a search warrant, they uncovered an array of badges, weapons, uniforms, and even police-type cars and equipment at two different residences. A next-door neighbor who referred to David Henry and Tonette Hayes as a couple spoke out to KCBS.
I always see them with their uniform, so I thought they were part of any chief department. I didn't know it was something fake.
On the website, the group describes how they are different from police departments. The site says, quote, "We are born into this organization. Our bloodlines go deeper than an application. This is more than a job. It's an obligation." Investigators have not determined a purpose or a motive for the organization. Authorities also believe Others may be involved, and they're accepting your tips to lead them to other suspects.
What's the deal with the Freemasons? When did this start?
This goes all the way back to deep antiquity. We're talking about 30,000 plus years ago. There were these brick masons in ancient Kemet called the Shattu. There was a pyramid war. There were 2 pyramid wars. The second pyramid war in the tablets talks about the fact that the Shattu helped Amun-Ra escape through a hidden passage in one of the pyramids. And before he left, he decreed that he would leave the kingdom to his Ra-Kam. Kam translates into shield, Ra shield. Over time, it became Rothschilds that are now running the planet.
Be a Shriner, you got to be a Mason. Before you be a Knights Templar, you got to be a Mason. And the more you go up in that pyramid, and the highest you could go is a Rothschild. Right. They're the highest of the highest. Really? Yeah, the children of Satan. Moloch is the actual owl that they worship out in California, all these big shots. And that's where they make the presidents, too. Really? They make presidents there. To do with them? Oh, yeah, you have to be a Freemason to be there. All the presidents were Freemasons. Okay. A small portion weren't, but they were Jesuits. This is the same thing. Okay. Yeah, even the Pope. Yeah, everything is controlled by the white and black Pope. Yeah, so black and white, which is white and black tiles, is where we have our temple. That's where you get that. Yeah, the yin yang, you know, the good versus evil. You got to have one of the balance. They know which president they're going to make. They make them. All this political stuff, right, that's just BS. Right. The all-seeing eye is the Lucifer. Right. Underneath them is the Rothschilds. Underneath them is the Council of 13. Underneath them, you got the Council of 33.
True aspects of mystic power are more fascinating, or buried more deeply in esoteric teachings and symbols. Thus, it was accessible only to selected candidates who had gone through the fires of initiation and vows of secrecy.
Underneath them, you got the Council of Foreign Relations. And underneath them, you got, you know, like 6 big companies. They own all the real estate and they own all, like, media. The Masons are the foot soldiers of the Illuminati. You understand the pyramid, right? Yes, yes. It's shaped like a triangle, right? So we're at the very bottom. Rothschilds, they run all that from their house. They don't leave that house. Why is that? I mean, because that's where the devil dwells. The devil could only be in one.
Well, what's wrong with being a Freemason, right? Well, a lot of people see that a lot of elites at the top are all Freemasons, and it ties into Skull and Bones, it ties into the Jewish Kabbalah, it ties into Satanism, it ties into a lot of things, and basically we see that a lot of low-level Freemasons don't see what's going on until they're in it so long, have built their brotherhood up so much that when they get told the truth, they will still stay in there, right? So the truth at the end, when they realize, is that they're really worshiping Satan 100%. There's pentagrams. They do say they have the Freemason, the Masonic Bible, but I promise you they do not believe in Jesus as the focal point.
This man grills a 32nd degree Freemason, asking him who his supreme authority is.
There's no way you believe in fraternity over truth. As a Christian,
that's why I joined, to get the truth. Because everyone...
Do you think you found it? That's a no.
No.
Nothing no.
You went through 32 degrees, you haven't found anything? 30th, 31st, 32nd, 33rd. You guys adhere to a supreme authority named Lucifer on page 321 of Morals and Dogma.
I'm pure and virtuous and wholesome and innocent. How can you say anything bad about me?
Sir, you need to be born again.
I am born again.
Now, did you just say that you are Lucifer?
I am Lucifer.
Okay, define Lucifer for me.
Pure, virtuous, wholesome, innocent individual that's out to help people.
Lucifer is?
Yeah.
Say that again. Lucifer is a pure, holy...
Virtuous.
Virtuous. Now, is he the Lucifer that God created?
That's the same one.
Oh, man, this is great. I'm going to put this on the internet.
Every Mason answers this like in a bland way. What's the significance of the apron?
Well, it represents the purity.
What is it covering? It's covering the life force energy, the penis.
Yeah.
Why didn't you say that? The significance is you're hiding the generative principle. The Egyptians did wear the apron still, even without the G, because they understood everything is built by that sexual, the will of the universe, the sexual essence.
Yeah.
So would you say it's a sex cult?
What?
It is a sex cult. All your secret powers are behind that apron. What's behind the apron is the penis. When the flap goes up, the penis is getting erect.
I was a young child. I was being raped by my father. My father is a Freemason. As me, as a kid, I was about 11, 12 years old. At the time when these images were taken, I was going to school every day. I had, on the surface, a normal life. but I was taken to a lot of rituals in the Grand Lodge, or sometimes more locally in the local area where I live.
What was the main way in which the Freemasons abused children, and you specifically?
The main way was rape, but the worst ways were using your hand to kill another being. I saw a little boy being murdered.
Yeah, Dad. Check it out. So this is more than a little disconcerting. It's just a pile of shoes and some bones in there.
There's like bones. There's bones.
A pile of shoes and bones.
There's like ribs and stuff.
That's a bone right there. Actually, there's quite a few bones.
Ben Franklin, they found tons of bodies in his...
Ben Franklin was a serial killer?
No, he was like doing some weird shit.
Was Ben Franklin's basement filled with skeletons? Repairs on Franklin's old London house turned up 1,200 pieces of bone from at least 15 people. For nearly 2 decades. By the way, this is from the Smithsonian.
Damntripoli.com.
Yeah. For nearly 2 decades leading up to the signing of the Declaration of Independence, Benjamin Franklin lived in London in a house on 36 Craven Street. In 1776, Franklin left his English home to come back to America. More than 200 years later, 15 bodies were found in the basement, buried in a secret windowless room beneath the garden. From a 1 meter wide, 1 meter deep pit, over 1,200 pieces of bone were retrieved. Remnants of more than a dozen bodies, 6 were children. Forensic investigations showed that the bones dated to Franklin's day. Holy shit.
And this evening, getting under the skin of the Ivy League, those 8 old, definitely distinguished colleges that are known for their ivy-covered buildings and their sometimes superior attitudes to other colleges and universities, which often gets under the skin of people who went elsewhere. Yale University is 300 years old this year, and were you to visit its campus, you would see that it still has exotic clubhouses, which look like tombs where Yale's legendary secret societies meet. Their prestige and importance have largely evaporated, but the rituals are still a secret. And so when we heard that some enterprising characters had managed to spy on the famous Skull and Bones Society, we couldn't resist. Here's ABC's Dan Harris.
The videotape provides a grainy glimpse into what appear to be the initiation rituals of a secret society that's been around since 1832, whose members have gone on to be leaders of Wall Street and the White House, the Senate and the Supreme Court.
They're sort of trying to scare the initiates, make them, disorient them, frighten them.
New York Observer investigative reporter Ron Rosenbaum accompanied a team of Yale students who shot these pictures 9 days ago. Rosenbaum's curiosity about Skull and Bones was permanently piqued when, as a classmate of George W. Bush, he lived right next to the Tomb, the group's heavily fortified home. From their perch, Rosenbaum and his cohorts taped the Tomb's courtyard. What they captured, they say, was initiates, known as neophytes, being forced to kiss a skull, then members performing a mock killing. It may look like your average fraternity nonsense, but Rosenbaum says it's not.
Even though it may seem silly to us, it seems to mean something to them, and you can't argue with the success of Skull and Bones.
True. Famous alums include senators, John Kerry and John Chafee, to name 2, cabinet secretaries, such as Averell Harriman, and 3 presidents, William Taft, George Bush, and George W. Bush, who's been reluctant to talk about Skull and Bones.
Does it still exist? The thing is so secret, I'm not even sure it still exists.
Edward VII, Edward VIII, and George VI were all Freemasons, as were 18 dukes and princes, including the Duke of Edinburgh.
This year, His Royal Highness Prince Edward, the Duke of Kent, celebrates his 50th year as Grand Master of the United Grand Lodge of England.
His Royal Highness was proposed into Freemasonry by the then Grand Master, the Earl of Scarborough.
He was initiated into Royal Alpha Lodge number 16, an advocate for the craft all over the world, continuing 3 centuries of distinguished royal tradition at the very heart of English Freemasonry.
Order, brethren, to receive the most worshipful Grand Master.
As permanent master of these three lodges, I now call on my deputy masters